Welcome to GrassRoot, Ohio. Conversations with everyday people working on important issues here in Columbus and all around Ohio. I'm Carolyn Harding, and today I'm talking with Randy Cunningham, Ohio activist and author of the new book, Where We Live: Environmental Activists Fight to Save Their Communities. Randy Cunningham is a Cleveland writer-activist. He has been active in a wide variety of issues for the past 50 years. His first book, Democratizing Cleveland: The Rise and Fall of Community Organizing in Cleveland, Ohio, 1975 to 1985, is a must-read for a new generation of Cleveland activists. His second book, Where We Live: Environmental Activists Fight to Save Their Communities, is based on interviews he conducted with environmental activists in Ohio, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Since completing Where We Live, he has launched an online weekly newsletter called Randy's Rants that has become popular in Cleveland. And to subscribe, email Randy at Randy, RANDINO 49 at gmail.com. Welcome to GrassRoot, Ohio, Randy.
Glad to be here.
Well, today in Ohio's Capital Journal, the top headline is entitled, "After more than a decade of advocacy, a majority of injection wells in Athens County are suspended." This is a huge win for Athens activists and all oil and gas activists. And in your book, Where We Live, which is a great read, by the way, you focus on this particular fight in Athens County, Ohio. Talk about this more than 10 years long fight and win.
Well, a little bit of background on it. One of the leading organizations for it was a Buckeye Environmental Network. And Buckeye Environmental Network came out of Buckeye Forest Council. And I was on the board of Buckeye Forest Council for about 4 years. And so I had an immediate list of contacts and people who I could go and talk to about it. And I've been following the issue very closely. As you may remember, I think the activism around fracking was one of the motivations for the Ohio State House to entertain a number of repressive anti-protest bills that you and I both fought against a few years back. And so this is a fight that has gone on, they've been confronted by a very well-organized power matrix, I guess you'd call it, at the State House. The frackers rolled in and they followed a manual that had earlier been written by the coal industry, as far as you set up you set up something where local municipalities or townships are removed from having any say over what you do with the mining or drilling or fracking or the drilling of hydraulic wells. And then what you do is you have all regulation go over to bureaucracies that are known to be bought and sold, bought and paid for by the industries, such as ODNR. And then you're ready to roll. You got more money than God, and you can purchase the acquiescence of all these State House politicians. And you're also working in very poor areas that are desperate for any sort of investment or jobs, even if it's a job that like coal classically puts bread on your table while digging your grave for the future. So these people were especially concentrated in Athens, and I went through why Athens was a particular hotbed of activism. It's got a population of people that are very passionately dedicated to it. You got a population of people that are long-term activists, environmental activists, and you've got an educated population that is very loyal to Athens. And a lot of these people, excuse me, a lot of these people have experience in regular politics, regular city politics, Democratic Party politics, stuff like that. So you had a very unique bunch of people that had come together that to fight this. But oh my God, what they, you know, any sort of people all the way up to Broadview Heights with Tish O'Donnell and Selpak, they encountered a thing where wherever they went to deal with the issue of fracking, it's like I call it the big world of no is what it is, because it is a formidable bunch of state political, economic, and legal fronts. So
Pardon
I
me?
think
What did you
this
say,
has
Randy?
been,
Just
I
now?
think it has been they've been confronting a big wall of no constructed by the law, by politics, by economics, and they have succeeded in having a first victory right now. And that victory, I think, is going to go and start opening up more and more holes in the fracking power in Ohio. And I was
It's a
thinking to
huge win.
myself, that I'd love to be in a room and ask Sherrod Brown what he thought of this ban on injection wells, because you talk to Sherrod and you say the word fracking and he heads to the door. He's otherwise an environmental hero. I'll work for him, I'll vote for him, but I wonder how that it has to be a very interesting footnote in the news for him, because it
I
shows
think
that
all activists should be asking Sherrod Brown what he thinks about fracking.
that's right. Okay, I'm being nice. Okay, I'm being
Right.
nice.
Well, let's go
You
on.
know,
I
I'm
like in
making
your
nice.
book, you're covering several grassroots environmental activists from Ohio, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Talk about some of these different communities that you highlight and focus on.
Well, one of the communities is, as we used to say back in Crystal City, Missouri, where I'm from, is right up the tracks from us. And that's Herculaneum, Missouri. And since time immemorial, since the War of 1812, it was a lead smelting town. And anybody who has any knowledge of the history of lead knows that it is one of the most toxic pollutants around. But what's interesting about Herculaneum, and I saw it when I was growing up in Crystal City, is that it was a one industry town. It's a company town. And that company was originally called St. Joe Lead Company. And my town was a company town of Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company. And that there is a particular mentality and culture in those towns that make it very, very hard to go up against the powers that be.
Who are the people that went up against them?
Well, Leslie and Jack Warden were two of the people that came up against that. And I discovered, much to my surprise, that Leslie was the secretary of my brother, who was an attorney in town. And so I talked to them, and you talk to a lot of people when you're writing a book like this. My organizing book, I took to talk to 100 people. This one I talked to about 50 people. And what you're looking for are good storytellers in their own right. Right. You know, you're a storyteller, you get together with other storytellers, you swap war stories, is what I talk about. And so they were leaders in this effort to either get St. Joe led, at that time been bought and sold to Doe Run Industries, to clean up the pollution in Herculaneum. How are you going to do that? It's in the soil, it's in the air. Jack talked about how when he was a kid, he wouldn't be able to see from one end of Main Street to the other because of the smoke coming from the lead company. And they were able to get the help of a couple of people that were with the Sierra Club and the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. And they started working the issue. And what happens so often, I noticed it in my organizing book and in this one, is you've got ordinary people who go and start getting all the facts and figures and documents, and they memorize the rule book of the people that they are fighting. And you have another person in the book was Cheryl Carpenter, and she was dealing with logging in the Shawnee State Forest, and particularly the issue of controlled or prescribed burning. And what she did is she got the fire boss's manual that's used all over the country, and she memorized that thing. And she could give chapter and verse to the ODNR and beat them at their own game. Same way with the Wardens. They beat the Missouri Department of the Environmental Department and go run over the head with their own manuals and their own rules and regulations and all. And finally, the reality dawned on everything that there was no way that smelter could be illegal, could meet all the guidelines. And then
it shut down.
they eventually shut down the smelter after, oh heck, almost 200 years of smelting lead. And it had repercussions all over the area, because in my part of Missouri, just south of us, it's what's called the lead belt. And it's a major lead mining area. And so they had struggles over Highway 21 going up from the lead belt, found that the rate of lead poisoning in the ground on both sides of the highway was just obscene, was just insane and everything like that. And then
another area that you covered was the mountaintop removal. Can you talk
one
about
of the things, yeah.
Can you talk about some of those activists?
Well, the activists in the mountaintop removal coal mining, that was in West Virginia, and it was centered around Coal River Mountain Watch and Climate Change Ground Zero, which was more of a funky set, civil disobedience type group, you know. It's kind of like in Athens, you've got the group that's replaced the Fracking Action Network and their relationship with Appalachia Resists, who are mostly like anarchistic type of people that specialize in direct action and stuff like that. But the center of it was Coal River Mountain Watch, and that'd been around for a couple of years, and it was heavily a grassroots group with people who came from the area around Coal River Mountain and the Coal River Valley and all. And here again, you're coming up, you're coming into conflict with the culture of coal mining in West Virginia. You're coming up against the state government. Joe Manchin was not a friend of the Coal River Mountain Watch when he was governor. And the whole matrix of power of coal, which has been, West Virginia has been described almost a colonial situation because so much of its land and resources are owned by companies that are not local. They are New York City or wherever, you know, but they own West Virginia for all effects and
There's also a group
purposes.
up in
And just
Cleveland.
um, for coal mining, you mean, or did the owners coal mining? Oh, okay. Well, one of the groups in Cleveland that I was working with was Clash, which had been trying to take care or address the issue of lead poisoning in Cleveland. Now, I have a housing background. I worked for the housing court. I worked in neighborhood groups. I ended up retiring from Cleveland Tenants Organization. And it's always been a major problem in Cleveland. And they started a campaign that threatened City Hall with a law that they had written to go and regulate lead paint, lead poisoning. And it was kind of interesting. Cleveland City Hall cannot stand anything that they haven't proposed. If you're a neighborhood group or whatever, or this group around Clash, if you propose something, the attitude of City Hall is kill it before it multiplies. So they were able to threaten City Hall with a initiative petition, and Cleveland City Hall blinked. And finally, they were able to get written into the City Hall regulations and all 90% of what they wanted to see. But then inevitably, whenever you're in this situation, yeah, you have victory and everything. And then the powers that be in City Hall or County Hall, county seat or anything will go and make sure that what you thought was going to be done won't be done. And right now we have a situation where they have just stonewalled the Clash on actually going and implementing the reforms that Clash was trying to get through and all. But that's the way the world works. I mean, you know, one battle ends and the next battle begins.
This is Carolyn Harding on GrassRoot, Ohio, and today I'm talking with Randy Cunningham. He's an activist and a writer in Cleveland, Ohio, and he just finished a book, Where We Live, Environmental Activists Fight to Save Their Communities. I'd like you to talk a little bit about what are the steps that activists face when they first, like especially newbie activists, when they first discover there's an issue that's impacting their community. What's the first steps they usually do?
One of the first steps they usually do is to get on the internet and start looking up, what's your issue? What's the problem? What's going on? And they start with that. And then they start showing up at various public meetings, or they may have a network of friends and like-minded people that are interested in the same topic. And then they start working the issue. I think the most important thing is that they have to have a sort of a civic mentality for themselves, because most people are absolute fatalists. They don't think their voices matter. They don't think they can do anything about what's happening that upsets them or whatever. And so the people who start working on these issues feel empowered enough that they can go and start working the issue. And then they start researching the issue. And then they start organizing other people. And then you start going up the chain, up the food chain, as far as the various bureaucracies, the various regulatory bodies and all. Because that's how, in a lot of these cases, you can go and get the attention of the company that is causing the problems. But then people go and run into a situation where where not only are they fighting the main culprits, say Doe Run Lead Company in Herculaneum, Missouri, but they are also fighting the bureaucracies. Because as soon as a bureaucracy gets founded, as soon as reforms are made, the termites of the lobbyists and the special interests start chewing away at it. And these agencies, the term in economics is that they are captured by the industries that they are supposed to regulate. And so frequently the people are going and ending up fighting a two-front war against to get the changes done that they want and all.
What are some of the tactics? I'm sorry, Randy.
Go ahead. What? No, I was going to say that one of the major things I talk about in the book is expendable places and expendable people. You can divide up the map of the society into who matters and who doesn't. And that's one of the things. And what happens with expendable people and expendable places is people get pissed off about being looked upon as expendable. And then they start doing start going up the ladder of various activism to take care of that, to make themselves worthwhile, worth listening to, worth not stepping on.
So then when they get to the top of that ladder and realize that the agencies, the politicians aren't going to help them, then do they inevitably go into direct action, civil disobedience? And how effective is that?
I think I think you have to go and keep a full tool kit for yourself. I think you have to go. It's good to have to be a fairly reasonable group that will debate the industry at meetings and pressure pressure politicians and stuff like that. It's also nice to have that group over there in the corner that are chewing on the rug, that are the real people that are into civil disobedience, glory in direct action, stuff like that. Who do you want to deal with, us or them? We'll smile at you and everything like that. You don't want to deal with them, But so I think it's real important to have uh, um, a diverse tool chest. I think it's also important to reach out to other groups that are larger groups, more experienced groups and everything. But one of the conflicts I saw in my book was, for instance, the situation with the Shawnee forest fire in 2009. And Cheryl Carpenter with Voices for the Forest, they were wise to what was going on, and they were trying to get attention of other groups, larger groups, to go and join them in the fight to see just what happened. Well, she knew what happened. They did a controlled burn on a day that the Weather Service says don't even barbecue. And they ended up barbecuing about 3,000 acres of state forest. But she said one of the most aggravating things is that the big groups, the big greens, may have relationships with the regulators, and they don't want to go and alienate the regulators, or they have relationships with the politicians, and they don't want to alienate the politicians. And so they may try to go and cool you off a little bit. But they also are sitting in Columbus or Washington, D.C. or wherever, and they don't know what the situation is in around the Shawnee State Forest. And so both sides need each other and everything. It's almost like the song from the Music Man, but he doesn't know the territory, in that old song with that old Broadway thing.
Well, Randy, we have less than 1 minute, and in the fight for environmental health and sanity, in your book, Kusi Ballot of Appalachian Resist quoted, "It's like we win a battle, but generally we are losing a war." What gives you hope, Randy, from writing this book and right now regarding the environment? And 30 seconds.
Cussedness, and also people who win. And sometimes you become like a hopeful cynic. You know the odds against you, but you're still hopeful. And you get up in the morning, dust yourself off, and get back in.
Well, I agree with you.
That's what gives me hope.
And the people gives me hope too. And people like you, Randy, thank you so much for writing this book. And folks, it is called Where We Live by Randy Cunningham. And you've been listening to GrassRoot Ohio.
Press. It's
Pardon
with
me?
Pilgrim Press.
Pilgrim Press.
Look up Pilgrim Press and you'll find it.
Thank you so much, Randy.
Well, thank you, Carol.
In addition to our Friday 5 p.m. broadcast at 91.9 FM, WGRN.org, GrassRoot Ohio airs on Sundays at 2 p.m. at 92.7, 98.3 FM, WCRS FM. And you can find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for joining us.